All right, my friends, today is June the 2nd. It is just after the weekly open. Let's do the market outlook and plans for the week ahead. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with the Bitcoin macro. No major updates to be had today. We're just going to be updating where we left off the past several outlooks. So as far as Bitcoin macro is concerned, still continuing to be trend respectors. So the trend is up. We are still continuing to build out this larger range since March between 70 and 60K. Still have the same overall summertime thesis, expecting more chop as we progress into the summertime, with expected trend resuming later on in the year. So essentially, as we progress into Q3, that's when the probability of us starting to resume the trend becomes a lot higher, in my opinion. As it stands, we're stuck range bound between 70 and 60K. We'll look at that on medium time frame here in a moment with more detail. So essentially, as long as we're below 70K, I think we want to remain risk off on Bitcoin. There's a couple of key sectors here and there that it makes sense to maybe be a little bit more aggressive with, but overall on majors, I think being risk off is the play for now. So that's pretty much it for higher time frame, right? We're just stuck in this range. I think that we're going to continue to chop people up, right? You know, last week and the week before, everybody was talking about us breaking out of the range and making all-time highs. I'm sure this week, you know, if we bleed down a little bit, as I would expect, we're going to see a lot of pessimism and a lot of it's over, and just continuing to see as we go from one end of the range to the other, just seeing the extremes in people's emotions. So that's pretty much it.
If you're interested in gaining access to the spaghetti template and learning how to properly utilize it, you should consider joining the Paragon group.
Let's go ahead and get into medium time frame on Bitcoin now. So keeping it really simple here, as far as I'm concerned with Bitcoin on medium time frame, as long as we're below the range low or the range high, I don't think it makes sense to be aggressively risk on in any way. So absolutely could see us taking a drive up here towards 69 or towards 70K this week. If we do, that's probably going to be prime bonk territory if you're not already hedged, or maybe even potentially looking to get directionally short. Personally, not a fan of getting directionally short. So I think that probably what's going to happen is that we'll probably trade up a little bit here, which my doodle doesn't really depict. Let's go ahead and pretend like I depicted that. So let's say we probably trade up a little bit, and then I do think that we're probably going to trade down. Originally, when we traded up towards 70K or a little bit over 70K, I was talking about us trading back towards 65K. So the mid-range, you know, we've been holding a support, which, you know, more or less is 66K. I really don't think that this is going to amount to anything. If we start to see any sort of sideways, you know, building of value over 70K, then I would be singing a little bit of a different tune. But as it stands, I'm still leaning towards a little bit more of the, you know, bearish side in the shorter to medium term on Bitcoin right now. So that's pretty much it, right? You know, we have an idea of the structure on medium time frame is relatively bullish. Just to point that out, it is important to make this point, right? This structure isn't terrible, so if we can hold support around here, and then, you know, we could see another drive up, but I would kind of expect the selling to come before that. Let's do ETH first. So you guys already know my plan for ETH, right? I think that if we're going to be bullish, we're not going to get any extreme pullbacks, right? So we're looking for very shallow dips on ETH. If the ETH plan is to play out where we go into ETH season. Alternatively, if we see sustained ETH weakness, then that more or less invalidates the plan. So paying very close attention to ETH BTC to see that sustained strength, and also paying attention for shallow dips. If we see shallow dips continuing to get bought up on ETH, then that increases the likelihood of us trading up. So I do think that the ETH season is upon us. I've been talking about that for a while. The one thing that I want to point out, though, is that I don't think you want to be too aggressive with positioning on this, because yes, there's the idea that we could just trade up from where we're at, but the flip side argument is that the risk of us trading back down is here, and that for me that means it doesn't really make sense to be super aggressive. So I have bought up some ETH to the point where I don't feel completely naked and underexposed to holding ETH, but I'm not aggressive with my positioning. It's definitely not a core position that would amount to anything like my Solana bag or anything. I'd like to get to that point where it's a much larger bag, but I don't want to be overly aggressive with it just because there's a scenario where the ETH, trade works really well, but it, squeezes people out and causes a lot of blood before then. So that's pretty much it, right? On ETH, just paying very close attention to ETH BTC and waiting for an opportunity to buy aggressively, which most likely comes in the form of an aggressive but shallow dip. Next conversation is going to be around Solana. So Solana, as it stands, I've been saying this for a couple weeks now, or ever since we kind of rejected up here. Solana obviously looks like it's going to want to trade down. Still very, very optimistic on Solana. Bigger picture, and something that I am going to be paying attention to is if the ETH trade really starts to heat up, I think Solana will be a major beneficiary from that. So I definitely think it makes sense to think about it like that, guys. It's really simple. If ETH is going to be strong and do well, I think it's almost a certainty, or as close as a certainty as we're going to get, that Solana will do very well alongside it. Nothing's really changed with the bigger picture. I still want to reiterate that. I think that we're going to still chop people up and be relatively boring during the summer, but don't let that discourage you. There's always something that you can be working on. So good luck out there, and cheers.